Thank you very much for attending today's webinar. This is a very important obligation under AML CTF Act towards the regulator. ASTRAC is using this report submitted by reporting entities to assess the level of compliance, and it is a legal document. Once submitted, it is legal and binding. We can't go back and say that I have done a mistake. That's why it has to be very carefully completed with honesty and integrity. Not submitting this report is a punishable act. And ASTRAC has very recently, in the last couple of years, commenced issuing penalties to failing entities, which is the same civil penalty applies for providing misleading and wrong information. It may result in director disqualifications and criminal sanctions. So it is a very important document. Upon completion, that's why we suggest that everyone who completes take time to complete them, review them multiple times, and then submit it once. And that's why it is 3 months time frame. Please be careful. Take time. Let one or two officers in the senior level review these and approve before you submit. And ASTRAC also uses this information to manage their regulatory efficiency. They can use this information to assess these entities, reporting entities, and seek further information under the following sections. The popular being a 75N. There are many sections which allow ASTRAC CEO to seek further information, clarifications until they are satisfied. This information may also lead to ASTRAC's assessment, or they may order some of the entities to go and get audited by external auditors under Section 162. Therefore, this questionnaire is designed to seek and provide clarity to ASTRAC that the reporting entities are properly adhering to the rules and regulations, and they are fulfilling their obligations to the level best. Having seen all these, we'll be seeing, as usual, the questions and what they mean, how important they are, and how to complete these. If you have any clarifications required on this particular question on your entity level status, we may provide clarifications. We may have private discussions also. You can book time with me, absolutely free. And we will be going through these general questions as it comes to everyone. And then if there are any particular questions which you may require for your entity, please contact us. Consider that the period for this report is from 1st January 2025 midnight. If you have not completed even one section in this time, you can actually say that you have not provided any designated service during this period and say no. With that, reporting will end only after giving them the feedback like with the guidances they provide, and their obligation arises if you have not performed any transaction during this period. There are only two cases where you hold a legal exemption from ASTRAC and as not to submit an AML CTF obligation compliance annual report, or you have not provided any designated services during this period. If you have offered and you have pressed yes, then the questions continue. And the next three questions, if you have provided any designated services during this reporting period, you must change the answer that you provided above to yes. ASTRAC is currently actively engaged in refining the number of registrations in their register. If you have not provided any report to ASTRAC during the period, they may be issuing notices asking why you have not provided such report. If you have not submitted any report to ASTRAC during this period, Even if you had done any transaction, ASTRAC may consider that you have not been actively providing designated services. Therefore, you may be receiving notices of intent to cancel your registration, terminate your registration. So it is a very important thing to keep your registration if you have provided service and respond to ASTRAC's notice. And you may be also providing reasons why you have not offered designated services, or you have offered designated services and not submitted any report to ASTRAC. You may provide your reason for not doing so in the question here asked. There is a free flowing text of 500 characters. You have to craft your reasons in a manner that it is appealing to ASTRAC, that the reason why you have not offered or not submitted report to ASTRAC should be given here. And if you have provided no as an answer in the earlier question and you have intend to offer designated services in 2026, and you have reasons to keep your registration on, then you press yes. If not, no. Some of the entities may not have a banking relationship or a corresponding relationship, or some of them may be engaged in doing technological developments, and that is taking time. You may provide those reasons in the question above in the free flowing text. And then you can say that we have intention to offer designated services in 2026, and you have to also provide them a very precisely workable time frame so they can wait, and then they will write back to you whether you have commenced business or not. It is a very important thing to keep the relationship with regulator in a close proximity so that you don't miss out on what you have to keep as an obligation, and also keep them understand how you are going with your obligations and how you are performing your designated services. The next question is, does your business provide digital currency exchange services? If it is yes, otherwise no. The digital currency exchanges have additional obligations like keeping the intelligence on how the exchanges are provided. I think most of our reporting entities are not holding digital currency exchange. If you have obtained registration with ASTRAC, press yes here. The next question is about cash intensity. Does your business accept or trade in cash? If it is yes, then you press yes. If you have made a decision that you will not accept cash as a medium of transaction, you may say no. That will provide a lot of confidence and comfort to both regulators and the associated banking channel or corresponding channel if you have not accepted cash during your course of designated service provision. Does your business offer any of the following products and or services? These are all the staple coin, privacy coin, non-fungible tokens, initial coin, ICO, cryptocurrency, and all are relating to digital currency exchange. If you are a currency exchange with remittance business, then you may also say retail exchange. But most of these are relating to DCE, which are digital currency exchanges. If you have also, this question actually means if you are providing these services not to retail customers, and also not only to retail customers, but also to digital currency exchanges, then you press yes here. Does your business accept customers from overseas jurisdictions? Yes or no? This question is a new one. I think some of our members are providing inward transaction to overseas customers. If it is initiated by an overseas customer, then the answer to this question is yes. For example, if a customer is repatriating funds from their country of origin to Australia, this may be a customer from overseas jurisdiction and it comes under this coverage, which means an overseas customer is initiating the transaction, and through your correspondence, it may be coming into Australia. And therefore, this is an S to some of our customers, some of our members. What transaction amounts or limits does your business apply to the amount of and digital? This is also a question relating to digital currency exchange. Therefore, if it is yes, and those customers may provide the details for this. This is a common question, predominantly covers the digital currency exchange area. Blockchain technology is a technology which are predominantly used by digital currency exchanges, but it is not limited to that. Remittance providers and other designated service providers may also use blockchain technology in the delivery of their transactions. If it is the case, then you may press yes. I believe that most of us are not using blockchain technology. Therefore, the answer to most of our members is no. I'm not saying that blockchain cannot be used in delivery of remittance transactions. Transaction monitoring can also be done. So if the blockchain technology is used in transaction monitoring, additional KYC, additional investigation or information gathering in making your SMR reports, you may say click one or more of these. This is a multiple answer question. You may click one or more. If you are not using blockchain technology for any of the following, then you don't have to. Then you press other and say we are not using any of those through blockchain technology. That doesn't mean that you are not doing transaction monitoring or you are not collecting additional information, gathering additional intelligence through other sources. But the question precisely here is about blockchain technology. If you are not using blockchain technology to the following obligations, you may say that you are not using blockchain technology for all the above. In the other, press other and then type. You can type free flowing text up to 200 characters on that. This is a very nice question. Did your business experience debanking in 2025? Be careful here. If you had experienced debanking in 2024 or earlier, it is not the right answer to say yes. It is only talking about that particular period of 1st January, between 1st January 2025 and 31st December 2025. If you have received a letter or an intent to terminate your banking relationship with any of your bankers during this particular period, then you say yes and provide reasons. Otherwise, it's a no. Even if you had experienced debanking in 2014, 15, 16, in any of the years before 2024, then the answer is no. This is a question. There are members who hold two registrations under two companies or bought a company or acquired a new company and merged with existing company. Then the response to this question is yes, otherwise no. Acquiring and merging is if a existing reporting entity had acquired a new company which is also doing the same services or additional services, and then they had merged or just acquired, then the answer is yes. The next question is also, it is also talking about reporting entity which are registered with ASTRAC. Previous question is if you are already a reporting entity, whether you have acquired even a non-reporting entity. If yes, provide the reasons, details about the merger and acquisition. Otherwise, you can leave that. So this is an old question talking about approximately how many full-time equivalent employees does your business have, and this time it is a free flowing 6-character text. So you will provide the number. The employee here means a person who is employed and paid through wages or salary or under contract. This is the full role, including compliance personnel and those who are providing designated services at the customer's counter front. The next question is talking about how many people are working in compliance, AML CTF compliance. You can provide the full-time equivalent, means there may be people who are working half a day in compliance, half a day in providing the services. So you can approximately put together and say there is one full-time compliance manager, and then there are 3 people providing part-time. So it will be 2 individual full-time equivalent. So the full-time equivalent actually means if you had put 8 hours per day and there are 3 employees providing 2 hours each, 4 employees, 2 hours each on a daily basis, then it will be 1 full-time equivalent. So that's how it is calculated. So you can provide that number. You remember when we submit our business profile with Abstract, we have key personnel who are all the ultimate business owners, the directors, and the AMLRO. Currently, it is AML Co. So these people have to be registered with Abstract through the business profile. And these are called key personnel. They are ultimate beneficial owners, directors, and compliance officer. Therefore, if there is a change in any of these, this would attract you submitting an amended business profile the 21 days from the date of change occurred. And then the key personnel should also go through the due diligence process, including obtaining a national police clearance. If there is a change in key personnel during 2025 calendar year, this may your compliance program being changed and reapproved. Be careful. Some of the questions coming ahead are going to capture that particular thing. So it's very apparent that if there is a change in UBO, ultimate beneficial owners or directors, this will be reflected in records. And if you have not done those changes in Abstract, the synchronization of data between ASIC and Abstract happens, this will create discrepancy. And therefore you will be deemed as violating or breaching the required reporting. Therefore, it is very important as soon as your ASIC change happens, or AML co is resigned and gone, or a new AML co has been appointed, you must report to Abstract through business profile within 21 days from the date of change occurred. And this question is asking about that. So if it is yes, yes, otherwise no. The next question captures whether you have notified these changes to Abstract. How did you provide designated service in 2025? All the means of how you provide these services to your retail or wholesale customers. Remittance platform had been a matter of misunderstanding for many years. So a remittance network provider like MoneyGram, RIA, they provide this platform to their affiliates. If you are holding a remittance application and you are an independent remittance dealer, then it is not actually a remittance platform. The platform actually means that you are providing a systemic capability to if you hold those, then you may say yes, you can click that. Otherwise, a website or a mobile app, then you should not be clicking remittance platform if you are not a remittance network provider and providing a platform to all your network members, affiliates. So whichever way you have provided these designated services, you may click those. IDM is intelligent deposit machine, which is the next smart version of ATM. If you have provided through additional methods, you may be clicking the last one and write how you had provided your services in the free flowing text for up to 200 characters. And this question is about whether these delivery methods are introduced in 2025. Remember, this is not a normal question. If you have clicked any of these or if you have commenced delivery methods during 2025, we have seen this too many times in our trainings. We have said this so many times that if you have commenced doing a new delivery method, this attracts risk assessment. And if your risk assessment changes, your compliance program changes. And be careful, if you have clicked any of these delivery methods introduced in 2025, then answers to the following questions, which is asking about have you conducted a risk assessment during 2025 and you pressed no, then it is a matter which attracts Abstract attention. I'm not here suggesting that you need to cheat here, but I'm just suggesting that you need to be honest and see if you have pressed that or if you have commenced the delivery methods in 2025, you must have already conducted a risk assessment, and as a result of new risk assessment, you must have already changed your compliance program also, revised your compliance program also. Change of UBO, director, and key personnel would also attract some corrections and upgrading in your AML CTF compliance program. So changes to key features in your service provision. Every time you do a small change, you should have conducted a risk assessment, and as a result of risk assessment, your compliance program would have also changed. See, the next question is asking about risk assessment. Okay. You may also write your justification as to why not, because it automatically attracts a risk assessment. Risk assessment is a very misunderstood area here. It's not a general or a very vague terminology anymore. Abstract expectation to risk assessment is very clear and getting very stronger. Please be careful with your risk assessment. It's not a template. It needs to be individualized. You need to really see how your enterprise is facing these risks and how you will be mitigating those. Outsourcing, there may be reporting entities outsourcing customer identification to commercial export entities which are providing those services. AML CTF program development, transaction monitoring, transaction reporting, enhanced due diligence and training. But if you have outsourced, you need to have policies and procedures as to how you mitigate the risk of the outsourced entity not complying with the regulatory requirements. Customer identification, if you have fully let this be conducted by an outside mechanism, then it is yes. Otherwise, if you are only getting a database from third party providers, it is not an outsourcing, because you are only taking a tool from them and you are conducting the customer identification yourself. The same goes to sanction screening, PEP screening, etc. If you are only connecting with other enterprises for database of whether you have your ID provided is genuine or sanctioned entities list or PEP list, you are still providing these customer identification yourself, and you are not outsourcing. Many people sometimes misunderstand Dow Jones or World Check this as outsourcing. No, you are only connecting to them for the database. But if you are using sometimes systems like SumSub, which actually takes information directly from customers and conducts all those checks and brings the result to you, that is actually outsourcing. Then you need to have policies and programs to make sure that these outsourcing are properly doing. At the end of the day, it is the responsibility, whether you are outsourcing or doing it yourself, of the reporting entity themselves. So you need to be very careful who you are outsourcing to, and while outsourcing, whether you are breaching any of the data and the information and privacy principles from AUSTRAC in an Australian context. Then these questions are about who is providing those services to you. You can write so much about who they are. And so these services which are outsourced, if it is outsourced, then you may write their legal entity name. Do you have an AML CTF program? Yes or no? In most cases, it is an yes. If it is not, then you provide in the next row why you did not. If you have an exemption from ASTRAC not to have a compliance program, or if it is managed by your holding company, you may say why it is not. See, there is one tip I want to give here. ASTRAC is more concerned now about the governance area. Governance is how AML CTF obligations are taken from board level to the three lines of, and how it is managed, how it is dynamically reported back, and all those. So in the new regime, there will be a lot of emphasis on the governance area. So this one question is about whether the AML program is approved by the board or the senior management. If it is a sole trader, then whether he has signed as an approved because it is very important thing. AML CTF program is the compliance manual, and this is how you manage, and you have expressed all your obligations and mitigation processes. If it is not an approved program, then it is not a legal paper, and it is really, you will not have a boundary as to what you committed yourself in the obligation, delivery of obligations. So, unless otherwise it is an approved document, signed document, then that doesn't stand any legitimacy in the governance. And also how you do, when there is a breach reported, if you have clear outlines about how you manage, and if it is an approved compliance program, it really is an efficient way of managing it. This is also a very tricky question. Be very careful. Also, if you are expected to revise your compliance program and get this approved by the board every time you make a small change, in an active environment, MLCTF programs are required to be revised every time there is a new risk emerges. The risk can be emerging from the change in regulatory framework, or a new learning from outside, or your own learnings from due diligence processes. They trigger a risk assessment requirement, and every risk assessment requirement is triggering a change in mitigation processes as well. And if you tell that we have not touched this AML CTF program in the last 3 years, or you don't have a approved program at all, then you may be expecting a notice of requiring more information from ASTRAC. Therefore, I encourage every entity to keep a very dynamic process in updating your risk and also revising your AML CTF program. Did you make any changes to AML CTF program in 25? Yes or no? It is also suggested that you do this as frequent as possible and keep your AML CTF program more dynamic than a policy document which is sleeping following, and be truthful and honest in these selections. This is a key requirement to have your AML CTF program independently reviewed. And if your policy document is talking about every 2 years, you must have completed one. And if it is not completed, then you provide reasons for why it has not been reviewed. And the next question is talking about whether your compliance program is talking about, if it is annual, then you need to go for an annual review. If it is 2 years, you have to say every 2 years. Your conduct of a independent review must not exceed what your compliance program had stated. You may say every 2 years, and you may conduct one every year. But if your compliance program is talking about annual and you have conducted independent reviews every 2 years, that may be a breach. But in the coming year, they are putting a slab to this in 2026. You may have to, based on your risk appetite, it can be either 3 years or 2 years. It cannot be more than 3 years. If your program is not specifying a frequency, then it may be seen as a breach. So then they are asking why you have not. The following can be triggering your IML CTF external review. You can select one or more of the following. If the reason stated here is not within the list, you may specify that in this, what additional reasons prompted the independent review. How was the independent review conducted? Internally, externally, a combination of internal as well as external. Internal, you can conduct internal review in combination with the external review, but that person must not have been involved in preparation of either risk assessment or compliance programs preparation. So who did your independent review? Whether it is an accountant, lawyer, auditor, or consultant, or other person. If it is other person, you may specify who that is. So the service provider's name comes here. Then the new governance requirement kickstarts. From 2026, reporting entities, AMLCO must take the external auditor's report to the board and brief them. and seek approval for budget or what recommendations had been made by the auditor. Those need to be briefed, and the board has an obligation to manage the mitigation processes and recommendations being acted on, and there must be some time frame for that. So the new requirement actually keeps at least once in a year, AML Co must brief the board of what the auditors have recommended and what actions have been taken, or if there is a budget required, they may take it to. And these need to be minuted, and it's a legal requirement now. Unless otherwise, you are a single sole trader or a company's director who is one individual who does everything, including AML Co and provision of service. There is an exemption to that. Did you conduct an money laundering and terrorism financing risk assessment in 2025? If it is yes, then probably if you conducted a risk assessment, it would have also triggered a requirement to revise your compliance program. Was this risk assessment documented? Yes or no? In most cases, it must be yes. So, what prompted this risk assessment? You can select any of the following. There can be multiple selections. Sometimes most of us are very intelligent and we are doing these with diligence, but documentation is what we lack. I encourage everyone to, whenever you do something and you see one of your customers in the media, you go and do this. How many transactions this person has done, whether we have submitted an SMR or not, all those things, you need to document them so that it can be tracked back during audit or even when the regulator comes to assess your compliance obligations delivery. Do you have a documented process for conducting a risk assessment? I think it's a good idea to have a policy on how you conduct your risk assessment so that it becomes a guidance to the personnel who is doing the risk assessment in your enterprise. Usually big organizations have these kind of documented process for conducting a risk assessment. I want you to be genuine. If you don't have a guidance, it's a document which is providing guidance for the process of risk assessment. If you don't have one, say no. If you have a policy as to how your risk assessment is conducted, then you may say yes. This employee checks, what checks you do on your employees. I think in the coming year, you will have to do all of the above, but currently you may click as to how many checks you do. It's a multiple selection. You may select as many, but be truthful and honest in what you have selected. I also encourage people to have their own training manual as to how new and promoted employees have been trained to they are promoted to, and the external training. But in all cases, reporting entities must have a training schedule and a training program. And it's a good idea to have them updated every now and then when new subject matters arise and requirement to train employees arise. It needs to be refined. A new training program may be part of your compliance program. If it is within your compliance program, you may say yes, but you must have a schedule of training and a minute of how and by whom these were delivered for audit purposes. So you may have multiple training programs for new and refresher, and you may also get external people to deliver those occasionally. You must document those, and those are legal requirement now to be audited. How your training program has been updated in 2025 or no, and what prompted as many. You can select as many, but be honest and truthful in your selection. It's a multiple selection. These are your customer numbers. Are not the transaction numbers. These are the number of profiles you hold. And there is a new change which we'll be talking about in coming webinars about how ongoing customer due diligence have to be enhanced. So this is a multiple choice question, and you have to go back to your database and take stock of how many customers. Don't provide approximate numbers. Be truthful about it, because these may come back. The abstract may come back and ask question about your numbers. Therefore, please go back to your CRM or customer database and select that range of where your customer numbers fall. This is also a multiple selection. If you are providing service only to individual, this also reflects the level of risk you take. And if you take company, trustee, partnership, you can select as many, but be truthful. Also, your compliance program and the KYC screening and transaction monitoring need to have capability to handle the complexities arise when your customer types one or more selections, because every customer type provides complexity towards how you handle your key personnel and the entity registration data screening and due diligences. Therefore, you may select as many, but you be careful that your compliance program must have the capacity, and your system should also have the capacity to handle all those. Yeah, these are simplified customer verification methods for people who cannot provide full identities sometimes. It's a good idea to have some exemptions for those in these lists. If I would encourage making changes to your compliance program to give way to these customer verification processes simplified to the following. So these are straightforward. If you don't have simplified customer verification, you may say no. If it is yes, then we select as many. And if you have faced any challenges during these, if you had those simplified versions and you had faced any challenges, I would like to know what kind of challenges you faced during this time. How many of your customers are high risk is a question. Did your business have a documented customer risk assessment methodology in 2025? The methodology is different to the risk assessment and risk register. Methodology is more like how you do this. It's more a strategic statement. If you had, most of us, I've seen compliance programs have this methodology listed. If it is yes, yes, but it is not a full risk assessment. It's only a statement of methodology. The second question in risk assessment is talking about high risk or above. Don't be worried about providing the true numbers. I would encourage you to see how many customers have come to the doorsteps of your enterprises for onboarding. And after your mitigation processes, you would not be commencing trading with them or providing service to them as long as they are within the tolerance limit to your risk. But the question here is how many of your customers were high risk at the time of onboarding? So be generous with your numbers and be genuine with your numbers and be honest with your numbers. Some of them, they just put zero or put some approximate arbitrary numbers, but please be specific to go back to your compliance program and see what you have defined as high risk or above very high risk, and take that criteria to your onboarded customer and count those matching the criteria. And that is the number you need to put here. Don't just put 500, 5,000 or zero, sometimes only four. It is not referring to your SMR. It is actually referring to how many customers you have onboarded. At the time of onboarding, your systems have considered those as high risk or very high risk. And I'm sure you must have already mitigated those risks before you allowed them to be providing services. So it's not a worrying number. Therefore, you don't need to be dishonest here. So did you perform politically exposed persons checks in 2025? I'm sure all of those have done this. If you have not done, please incorporate one politically exposed screening as soon as possible. And be honest in this answer. If you have done yes, yes. If not, no. And there is no way you can do this without subscribing to a data. So I would strongly recommend everyone to subscribe to a commercial external database for politically exposed persons. In my knowledge, I don't think we have a publicly available free source for PEPS screening. So you can select as many sources. Sometimes you need a trigger and then you would go to publicly available sources. You may find those data. But upfront, through a name, you cannot have an automated screening and find out whether this person was a PEP or not. PEPs are not straightaway criminals, very high risk, but because they are exposed to high risk, you need to be carefully dealing with them on their transactions. So this is talking about capability. The next question is talking about how many customers have been identified in your database as PEPs during the year 2025 calendar year. Does your business obtain applicable customer identification information provided by brokers? You may also obtain this ID verification database from Commonwealth Data Portal, but most of us have brokers. Through brokers we arrange, they have built APIs, and if you are using information from brokers, you may say yes. Does your business verify the applicable customer identification information provided by brokers? Yeah, whether you are taking that information and straight away acting on, or you are doing further additional checks. That may be the difference between the two questions. Unusual or potentially suspicious activity. When it comes to reporting between the hierarchy, you assume that it is a big enterprise and it has reporting levels. Otherwise, you may say if you are a smaller firm and you don't report to each other, is straight away you have, then you can click verbal conversation internal and then you submit SMR to us. Otherwise, if you are a structured organization where things happen in a hierarchy, you may also choose how you do this, and there can be multiple options in this. Why did staff not identify and report any unusual? Even if you clicked no here, nothing here, or if you click the last option, the staff did not identify or report any unusual or potential activity, you have to provide reason why your staff had not identified any or report potential suspicious activity. So if you have reporting methods which are internal, if you have also external, you have to explain in 200 characters in free flowing text. Transaction monitoring program is a key obligation in delivering your AML CTF obligations. If you don't have a transaction monitoring program, it's seen as a breach nowadays. Therefore, if you pressed yes, then you have to say whether it is manual, automated, or both. Manual, if you have added the data to your Excel sheet and you have used VLOOKUP and search criteria to identify those breach of your controls, then you need to keep clear records as to an auditor can verify whether you have adequately monitored your transaction. People do both. Applications also result in identifying suspicious activity, and those need to be investigated. And if it is not returning satisfying results, need to be reported to us track as SMR. The rules are those which are the criteria of identifying the suspicious activity. You may add new rules based on your learnings from external sources or your own investigation. So if you have done that in 2025, if you have added any new rules in 2025, you press yes, otherwise it is a no. And what prompted you to review your transaction program rules, you may select one or more of those. That can be independent review recommendation, or maybe a media report, or even your own insider learnings, which required you to change your transaction monitoring program rules. So there may be triggers which required additional review, including asking for publicly available information or external sources of intelligence to complete the investigation. If it was the case during 2025, you press yes, otherwise it is a no. Why did your transaction monitoring program not identify any suspicious? This is a very important question for you to answer. If you had not reported any SMR. Not reporting an SMR is not a criminal act unless you had reasons to prove that you had no suspicious activity, including that you made informed choices about not taking any risk in your onboarding and conducting transactions. You are closely monitoring. Therefore, you had never come across a suspicious activity. When it's not a good idea to take a chance and be supportive of all our customers because we don't know what they are doing. We are here to make sure that our platform is not, our channel is not used for any suspicious activity. Therefore, either we have proper systems and controls and transaction monitoring program rules, alert rules, and they work properly and we do some reports. Otherwise, we explain why we have not come across suspicious customer transactions. Enhanced customer due diligence are those which require further re-KYC and seeking extra information about themselves, change of address, change of occupation, change of source of income and source of funds. Some of our members do seek this information at the time of every transaction, but however it is needs to be properly defined what triggers the enhanced customer due diligence requirements, especially when you have set thresholds for each level of customers bring and those thresholds are breached. That is the point at which you may seek additional enhanced due diligence, but it needs to be defined in your compliance program and acted upon accordingly. And that is what it means. The questions are, do you have a documented enhanced customer due diligence program? If it is, I'm sure you must have that. If it is yes, yes, no, no, then did you conduct ECDD in 2025? Then we also answer based on our records. If you don't have an ECDD conducted and you don't have records of it, then you better be honest and say no than yes, because this is a legal document and you should not be dishonest in that. Then the question is why you did not conduct ECDD. Then you provide an answer here. So these are all the methodology measures how you have conducted ECDD. You can select one or more these and these need to be recorded. And if you have records to the how you have conducted, please select as many, but be truthful here. This is also a very key obligation. We can call it as a pillar. Reporting entities must be open. Open, when we say open, you need to have updated contact details so that Astra can send you queries. And when feedback is required, you need to be ready and meet the deadlines to provide responses. And this is also if you received circulars from Astrac in a general context, or you may receive specific guidance for you and you as a reporting entity, then you need to click that. So these are all again remedial actions or general guidances. What response? If it is only general, you have not received any specific guidance or are requiring additional details, you only select those and then how you acted on those. You may say that we have not received any particular targeted communication from Astrac in the additional actions. Okay, you may also contact me separately for any specific questions relating to your reporting entity. And with this, thank you very much for everyone who have attended today. And thank you. And this recording will be available for other people who have not attended today. Thank you.